Chapter 1: The Internet is Broken. 01. Jiang walked to the window again, trembling, and closed the wooden window with cold hands. The sun hadn't been seen for several days, and when the leaves were falling, heavy rain also fell, day after day, with no intention of stopping. Strings of rain pulled the clouds and sky inch by inch toward the earth. When the window was closed, Jiang felt that she could touch the clouds filled with ice water just by stretching out her hand. "Mother-in-law, would you like to turn on another heater?" Jiang kept rubbing her hands. Although she was talking to the inside, she was rushing to the kitchen outside. "Come back, come back." The little old man, who was called mother-in-law, ran out with the stove in his hand. "Why are you running outside on this rainy day?" "I got caught in the rain and coughed again." The mother-in-law put her hand stove into Gracilaria's hand and pushed her inside. "It's almost night, my mother-in-law. Go get another one for you." Even though the old man no longer has black hair, he seems to be in good spirits. "How can I let you go? I have grown up. I can take care of you instead." The little girl, who was treated as a treasure, was about to press her mother-in-law's hand and run out, but she was stopped again. "They have grown up, and they will only be 16 after next month. My mother-in-law needs to take care of a little brat like you. Just stay in the house." The old man pretended to be angry, frowned, and pushed his granddaughter on the chair, picked up a lamp, and went outside to the kitchen. Although they had just eaten dinner, the stove might still have residual heat from the cooking, but after all, it was a cold night, and it would take some time to start the stove again. Jiang wanted to get a thick coat to put on her mother-in-law. She quickly put her palms and backs on the stove a few times, then got up and pulled out the box of clothes she had stored under the bed for the winter. These were also packed by her mother-in-law. At that time, the weather was getting warmer, and the spring breeze was refreshing. Gracilaria climbed to the apricot tree in front of the door and sat for a day. She wanted to go to the peach blossom forest further away, but she could never go out alone without the company of her mother-in-law. "My mother-in-law really always regarded me as a child." Jiang laughed to herself while dragging the box. "This box of clothes seems to be his own. This is the goose yellow cloak that the child noticed at first sight when the grandfather and grandson went out on the street last year." It is not difficult for the frugal old man to see the affection in the eyes of the children who stopped moving forward. He somehow forgot to negotiate the price that day and paid very generously with his wasted money. "Mother-in-law, I don't like it anymore." "Silly boy, this little money is nothing. My mother-in-law has a lot of money." "Then, mother-in-law, please give me 2 more coins to buy candies." So Jiang was beaten home by her mother-in-law, who was carrying new clothes that day. Gracilaria suddenly lay down on the edge of the box and took a big sip. It smelled of tea used for insect repellent and of the honey locust used by her mother-in-law to do laundry. Jiang knew that she was different from the children down the mountain since she was a child. She only had her mother-in-law and no parents. Every time a child annoys her mother-in-law with her naughty behavior, the old man will always say without hesitation, "I can't control you. Go find out who wants to be your parent." Every time the mother-in-law said something like this, the erring little person would hold the old man's neck hard, rub her face, and say, "No, I just want to be with my mother-in-law." Then the mother-in-law would spit on the ground, caressing her granddaughter's back with one hand, and free her other hand to comb her hair. The old man seemed to love combing Gracilaria's hair and would comb it carefully for a long time every day. "Girls' hair will only look better if you comb it with your hands." "Oh, why are you distracted?" Jiang patted her head and said to herself, "Mother-in-law is still cold." So she quickly covered the box, dragged out the smaller one next to it, casually took out the top coat with a dark green background, and walked out. Suddenly, there was thunder across the clouds, and for a moment, Jiang was startled by the old man who rushed in under the rain. Xiao Wei, hide quickly." Jiang, who didn't know why, was directly stuffed into the closet in the corner. Before she could struggle, she saw a group of blood-red human eyes and dirty clothes out of the corner of her eyes. The old man decisively isolated his granddaughter in a safe place, but despair and fear still wrapped up Gracilaria in the closet like a huge black sack, making it impossible to breathe. 02. The information obtained by the killers is that the target is old and weak and has no spiritual power. Therefore, when they demolished this small, dilapidated house but failed to find the person they wanted to capture alive, when they saw the ghostly green light that suddenly flashed out when they were supposed to give the old woman the last blow lying in a pool of blood, when they felt that the world was spinning and the head fell to the ground, they still didn't understand why this mission failed. Where's the person? This was not a question. It came from an obviously old but majestic voice. A group of people on the ground in black clothes knelt down in unison. As if they had been trained, they hit their heads on the ground and remained motionless. These were the second batch of killers who were responsible for responding. When they rushed to the scene after feeling something was wrong, they couldn't even find a breathing rat. There was no way to bring back any useful information. This time, they failed completely. A bunch of useless trash. The voice was roaring and trembling. My Lord Dash, the man in black standing at the front, wanted to explain something, but the man in front of him flicked his sleeves and saw another human head. I only want the nine-tailed fox pill in her hand. The person who gave the order stepped forward step by step, possessed, and stared at the little demons on the ground, and gave an ultimatum. Take Fudo with you and go to Baichishan. 3 duck towards the south. 1 autumn rain and 1 cold. This year's apricot harvest is not much, leaving a tree withered branches in the cold wind. In fact, the apricot tree that blooms brilliantly every year will never be able to leave many fruits. This old tree knows that we little beetles only like flowers and don't like to eat the sour fruits. So, with all its strength, we put all our efforts into blooming. Every autumn, my mother-in-law would stand under the big tree with a crutch and sigh. Jiang stared at the bare branches in the distance for a long time before confirming that she was still on Baichi Mountain. She didn't know why she was in a maple forest. The heavy rain for days had stopped. A breeze blew by, blowing off many water droplets. A few fell into her neck, but she was not noticed at all. Maybe it was because her body was as transparent and cold as the rain. Gracilaria looked away and raised her face to look up. The branches were covered with water drops, and a full moon hung above the raindrops. The cold moonlight sprinkled on the water drops and then folded into the hearts of those who looked at the moon. A few more drops of water fell, and she finally shuddered. Go home. Maybe it was a dream. Everything happened so suddenly. Jiang Li's mind was empty, and she stepped on the thick maple leaves 1 foot deep and 1 foot shallow and was about to go home. After a few stumbles, something bit her trouser leg. Several gray and mixed-haired little beasts trampled the water beach and fallen leaves into a sticky mess. The smallest one was tugging hard on the girl's trouser leg to prevent her from moving forward. What is it? Jiang Li leaned over and tried to pull them apart. It's really a flood that has washed away the Dragon King Temple. The older gray-haired one on Jiang Li's front legs couldn't help but say, What? Who is talking? Another strange voice. Jiang Li's nerves were once again dominated by fear. It's me, the fox in front of you. Gray hair spoke again, a pair of dark eyes softly meeting the frightened gaze above. Gracilaria has seen birds of various colors flying around on the treetops, deer howling in the depths of the forest, venomous snakes and wolves and dogs, but she has never seen any foxes. But just because she hasn't seen it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Ever since the young and old came, the foxes in Baichi Mountain have all hidden their traces, not out of fear or making enemies, but more like a kind of silent protection. Can I understand you? Jiang Li couldn't believe it. Hey, my dear. The old fox smiled helplessly. You really don't know anything. You don't know anything. But Jiang Li didn't want to figure out the current situation. She wanted to go home and see everything as it was before. Her mother-in-law stood in front of the door angrily, hammering the floor with a cane and blaming her for coming back so late. Oops. A large piece of his trouser leg was torn off, and Jiang Li was a little angry. Go away. I want to go home. She crossed the obstacle under her feet and hurried forward. Stop, stop. You can't go back. This time it was the smallest gray-haired one that stood in front of Gracilaria. Bah. It spat out a few mouthfuls of the strips of cloth it had just torn off. Grandma said, "You can't go back." It opened its paws wide again, thinking it could block more roads. Your home has been demolished. Your home is gone. What do you mean? Jiang Li's legs went weak, and the nightmare was finally told that it was not a nightmare. Where is my mother-in-law? Have you seen her? Jiang Li felt her throat become bitter. No, you will be the only one here when we arrive. Little Gray Fur walked forward cautiously and put his paws on Gracilaria's legs. Go and look for it, okay? Can you help me look for it too? The person lying on the ground remembered the sounds he had heard, the sound of his mother-in-law's blood vessels drying up. I took a look secretly. There were corpses on the ground, and no one survived. A strong gray fox also came around. Gracilaria seemed to have heard what they said, but it seemed not to have heard them. She still wanted to go home for a visit, but she was suddenly afraid of going back. Pale fingers pinched the thigh. Wake up! Wake up! Wake up quickly. Seeing her devastated look, the fox family closed their mouths and dared not speak. The old fox condoned his grandson's bold act of touching Jiang Li, and at the same time vowed in his heart that even if he risked his life by dragging her, he would let the girl in front of him leave here safely. Suddenly, the people sitting on the ground became alert first, and then the gray furs. They lowered their figures one after another, but kept staring at the northern sky. Someone is coming again. The crowd was riding a dove, pulling a giant beast with black fur that looked like a dog's feet and was as tall as two people. The beast opened its fangs from time to time and spit out sparks. Just in time, they landed in the courtyard of the cabin. As soon as the giant dog landed, it smashed the apricot tree, which was slightly taller than it, on its waist. Gracilaria and the foxes, whose branches could no longer be seen in the distance, looked at each other in confusion. It was the old fox who reacted first. He boldly patted Gracilaria and tilted his head to signal Gracilaria to follow him. The fox's paws are furry, and its body is small. It moves quietly, and it is not difficult to escape. But if you just take someone with you, it will be difficult to tell. The old fox was really afraid that the sound of trampling fallen leaves would be heard by that group of people. Fortunately, the heavy rain for days had softened the fallen leaves, and the doves were croaking wildly because of the sudden fall of the tree. The fire-breathing black dog was even growling at them impatiently. For a while, no one heard any movement in the maple forest. Beast. By the time the conductor stopped the scene, the maple forest was already quiet and empty. Bring Fudo over and let him find him. The giant black beast received the order and walked proudly past where the doves were standing, heading towards the wooden house. There was another noise in the sky. The giant beast sniffed around the broken furniture and corpses on the ground, raised its head and howled twice into the maple forest, then looked to the east and roared. It seems that the person who killed the brothers ran to the east. The leader felt Fudo's anger and called his mount down with a roar. Let's go. He didn't know if he could catch up with the target who ran away a few hours ago with the mythical beast Fudo. The group had left for a while, and the leader suddenly flew to Fudo and whispered a few words to him. I saw the giant beast lowering its cloud head, returning to its original place with satisfaction, opening its flaming mouth and turning the dilapidated house on Baichi Mountain into a pile of ashes, along with the surrounding vegetation, mountains, and villages, even though it was still wet with steam just now. Even if we can't find it, we can't let others see anything. The leader hurriedly pursued the team towards the sunrise without looking back. Gracilaria seemed to have been in the foxhole for a long time. She felt a fire burning the ground for a moment, and the heat was unbearable. After a while, she felt rain falling, hitting the hard ground, making a hollow echo. When everything returned to peace, Jiang Li was the first to dig out of the foxhole. The autumn wind rustled, and the earth was scorched. There was nothing left on the ground, Both the front and the back of Jiang were equally desolate. The fog that rises after the rain seems to be the souls of the creatures that originally grew on this land, rising, rising, and then breaking away. The old fox asked Gracilaria to drink some water, and Gracilaria drank the water. The old fox asked Gracilaria to eat some dried fruits for the winter, and Gracilaria ate a few fruits. The old fox asked Gracilaria if she wanted to kowtow to her mother-in-law, and Gracilaria knelt down in all directions. The old fox asked Jiang if he wanted to stay. Jiang looked at it blankly, and after a long time shook his head. The old fox asked Jiang where he planned to go. Jiang looked at it blankly and didn't respond for a long time. The old fox sighed distressfully in his heart. This doll has not lost its desire to survive. The old fox asked Jiang to look at the scorched earth on the ground, and Jiang looked at the scorched earth on the ground. The old fox asked, "Do you know what is in the soil?" That Gracilaria was already extremely talented. After sitting on the ground for an hour and letting go of the sadness in his heart, how could he not understand what the old fox said? Despair leads to life. Yes, there are thousands of corpses of living beings buried in the soil. Don't you know that when the wind blows next year, thousands more living beings will emerge? The old fox was happy that her eyes finally had some life, and she quickly continued. "You said this is your first time seeing us foxes?" "Yes." "You have never been out of Baichi Mountain?" "No." "So there are many things in this world, many things that you have never touched or seen. Nowadays, why not go out for a walk?" The old fox almost said the wrong thing and hurriedly coughed a few times. Jiang looked at the old fox and then at the burnt earth for a long time. "Grandma Fox, you think those people will come back, right?" Jiang tone was very calm. The old fox was obviously not prepared for such a question. "That's why you went to such great lengths to keep me away from here." "They couldn't find me, so they killed my mother-in-law and burned Baichi." "I'm different from others, right?" Jiang turned back to look at the old fox. "That's why I can talk to the fox, so my mother-in-law did it to protect me dash." "You are indeed different from others." The old fox couldn't stand the girl's gaze and lowered his head involuntarily. "But I am just an ordinary mountain fox who has never left Baichi Mountain in my life. I know very little and cannot give you the answer you want." Jiang was silent for a while. "But you know why I can understand you." For the first time, the old fox felt the majesty from this girl, which was the suppression of blood. "Yes, but the reason is not something that a vulgar person like me can explain." The old fox knelt on the ground. "Please forgive me." When the fox family watched the figure in thin clothes heading south disappear from sight, Xiao Hui asked Grandma, "Will Sister Jiang come back?" His grandmother gave Xiao Hui a hard knock on the head. "Who are you calling sister? You little bastard with no rules." Chapter 2, Southern Wasteland. 1. Fox Station. When it is raining in autumn in the north, the bleak, cold air cannot climb the high mountains in Lingnan. There is still a wilderness in the south, with deep and dense forests and branches full of fruits. Jiang didn't know where she should go or where she should look, but the strange thing is that there are always waves of foxes along the way, sending each other off like a relay station. Some of them have gray fur, some have green fur, and occasionally you can see beautiful red foxes. They have different coat colors and different temperaments, but they always lead Gracilaria all the way to the south, seeming to urge her to leave this former homeland. Although she was accompanied by little foxes on the road, Gracilaria was still very lonely. It's the kind of loneliness that comes from being in a vast world without hearing a single human voice. The further she goes, the more she misses her mother-in-law, who has been with her since childhood. She felt like a lonely duckweed whose roots were suddenly taken away one day and escaped from the pond called home. Even the little fox traveling south around her would have a day to go home. But what about herself? Without mother-in-law, where would there be a home? Gracilaria watched the yellow leaves fall, the red leaves fall, the orange leaves fall, and then one day she found that no leaves fell, and suddenly she looked up and saw the broad green trees full of branches. At the end, the red-tailed fox accompanying her was also ready to say goodbye. Girl, I'm sorry I can only send you here. After descending this mountain, there is a gathering place in front of us. It is not convenient for us to show up again. I hope the girl can find a place of peace of mind and be safe and healthy for the rest of her life. The fox bowed to Gracilaria and finally added, By the way, girl, when you meet other people in the future, don't say that you can talk to the fox. I know, Jiang replied calmly. It was another farewell. This was the final station escorted by the foxes. Jiang wanted to bow to the fox to express her gratitude, but the little beast on the ground avoided it again, took a step aside, turned around, and disappeared into the jungle. I'm not a vixen. Every fox was trembling with fear. Jiang looked at the retreating figure with a wry smile and shook her head. When I was a child, I heard stories that the world has been divided into 3 categories: humans, demons, and immortals since the beginning of chaos. If I were really a vixen, then Redtail told me not to reveal this skill in me. It was a good intention. Jiang said to herself, the people in this story are all diligent and are protected by the immortal family. The aloof immortals have great spiritual power and are respected by thousands of people. But what about the demon clan? In every story, it is said that they are evil and vicious people who hide from others and kill them when they see them. No. Jiang patted her face and shook her head. My mother-in-law has always said that I am simple, kind, smart, and cute since I was little. How could I be a goblin? In fact, this was not said by the mother-in-law herself. It was said by Aunt Wang when she was chatting with the tofu seller in the village, but Aunt Wang may not have said it sincerely. At that time, Aunt Wang, who sold tofu, had taken a liking to the little Gracilaria. When her grandfather and grandson were passing by at the market, she grabbed her mother-in-law and blew against Gracilaria. She was spitting and praising Jiang for being innocent and romantic. She could see that she was a beauty from her small face. Then she praised Jiang for having a broad forehead and deep eyelids. She looked like she had a blessed face, which was perfect for her nephew, who had just won the title of scholar. The mother-in-law nodded her head and said yes repeatedly, and then thanked Aunt Wang in a very sincere tone, saying that her little granddaughter was so stupid all day long that she couldn't tell the difference between grains of salt and rice. After marrying a scholar, it would be great to have a servant to wait on her. Besides, she had not been quiet since she was a child. She looks gentle, but as she gets older, I can't control her anymore. I let her roll in the mud, cover antholes with mud, and stuff bird eggs with cotton. If she enters the door in the future and feels the rich cultural influence of the scholar's family, maybe she'll eventually become a girl. The mother-in-law talked a lot in the sun, and Gracilaria ran under the tofu cart to hide from the sun. When someone called her again, she listened to Aunt Wang's final summary. Then your granddaughter is really innocent and romantic, smart and cute. Then the mother-in-law kept saying, yes, and happily took Gracilis home. Mother-in-law is reluctant for me to leave her. Jiang raised her empty right hand and looked at the dense forest surrounding her. Her heart tightened and she sighed. But she left me after all. 2. Bluestone. The mountains south of Lingnan are overlapping one another, and the trees south of Lingnan are one after another. The mountains and forests in the south circle a piece of Guizhou land. Speaking of this land of Guizhou, it has 3 no's. No one can come out, no immortals can come, and no monsters can go out. Northerners call this place Southern Wilderness, while locals call themselves people who are blocked by mountains and covered by forests. There are many basins called Batsi in the mountains. The local people have built many villages around the basins. The northernmost village is called Hunchi Village because there are often various snakes and insects nearby. The bolder locals will catch some weird ones when they are not so busy, either to exchange money or to make wine. Sometimes they don't catch any valuable ones, so they just stew soup to replenish the body of the whole family, which is very satisfying. There is a master in Hun Snake Village who is good at catching snakes. His name is Qingshi. He is only 18 or 19 years old. It wasn't because of his extraordinary talent or knack for catching snakes that he was called a master. The reason is entirely because practice makes perfect. Just ask the locals, and you will know that they will always put down the seedlings in their hands, wipe the sweat from their foreheads, and say, "Hey, you're not idle yet." The young man named Qingshi had no fields to plant, no fruits to harvest, no father, no mother, and no property. The mountains were his treasure house of gold and silver, so he ran to the mountains every day. As time went by, he not only mastered the skill of killing snakes, but also knew all the treasures in the mountains. For example, he knew that the best Ganoderma lucidum in the entire dam grew on the shady side of the mountain stream, that there was life-saving resurrecting grass in Huda Valley in summer, and that the most valuable venomous snakes were found in the thorn bushes with jagged rocks under the northern slope. But that day, the boy who came to catch the snake wandered around for a long time and didn't even have time to see a snake shadow. Instead, he was really startled by a white human-shaped shadow in the bushes. "Ah!" Qingshi hurriedly patted his chest, looked up at the sky, and muttered, "Gods bless gods, gods bless. Go away quickly." The shadow was motionless. Qingshi thought about the gods for a long time and finally discovered that the thing might actually be a person, an injured person who fell from the hillside and rolled into the thorn bushes. So